My talk is about deploying ASP.NET Core applications. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Danijel Malik. I'm the second Slovenian guy. So as you can imagine, we're pretty good guys. Obviously, we wouldn't be here if we weren't. So let me get you through the agenda, what we're going to talk about today. So first thing is, what is ASP.NET Core? I'm going to roughly explain what it is, and then we're going to go through the rest of the talk will be about deployment. So how we're going to deploy that to IaaS, how we're going to deploy that to Azure, using Octopus Deploy, release management in TFS, and the last bit, I'm going to show you how you can push ASP.NET Core on Docker. So I've got a lot of things to tell. I'm just going to jump into it. A bit about me. So I work here as a solution architect. I am an MVP for, I think it's Visual Studio and Development Technologies now. It used to be ALM. So I still, use ALM everywhere around because that's where I'm, referring to. That's my main focus. So I love everything about DFS, Visual Studio, DevOps, and I love trying, bleeding edge technologies. Okay. So question, what is ASP.NET Core? Who has an idea? TJ, you've got a mic, you've got to tell something.
It's the core of everything.
Is it? It's like the core, the movie. When you have
they
to
actually completely rehauled .NET, and they're making it more accessible by other developers, other than .NET per se developers.
Okay, do you agree with that? He pretty much, summed up everything what Microsoft thinks about it. So apart from that, it's open source, it's cross-platform and it's modern. They think about it, cloud-based, framework for building web apps. I would say it's not really cloud-based, and it's not using .NET because it's .NET different. It's just a subset of it. So, and the most important bit, it deploys a little bit differently than what you used to do. So how do you get started with ASP.NET Core? You have to install the SDK. You get it from, if you go to .NET.github.io, you can pull down the SDK, and there are a bunch of samples out there, so you can start playing with that. I'm not going to go into details because not that I don't want to, but we have another speaker and I want to eat up in his time, so that's why. But yeah, if you run out of samples, on GitHub, our guys Duncan, Hunter, and Adam Stevenson, they've built up a demo. So pretty much they rewrote the entire music store in Angular 2 and ASP.NET Core. So if you want to check that out, the link is on top. It's really cool what they've done. Okay, so now the first important bit. ASP.NET 5 and ASP.NET Core, they are two different things. The reason is, here we have .NET execution environment. That bit is now gone. So how many of you actually tried ASP.NET 5 apps before? Okay, a third of the room. So for those of you who have tried this, you know that in the past you had DNX Core, DNX as an environment where you executed your apps, and you had to use different commands. So they pretty much took that layer out. So now you have just ASP.NET Core. So let me take you a step back. You see, DNX is gone. Everything is now .NET, and not much has changed in terms of how things work. It's just a few commands over here and there. Now, one important bit here is, you see here I have IIS. So that's classic ASP.NET 4.6, and this is ASP.NET Core. It runs on a different web server. So they wrote up Kestrel, which is a new web server in ASP.NET Core. It's extremely fast. It's very lightweight, and yeah, I'm going to show you how you can deploy ASP.NET Core apps on IIS, even though they're running in the Kestrel on the back. So first, how things look like during the development phase. We have a .NET Core SDK. You pull it down. You've got a bunch of tools that you need to install. Then you have project.json and a bunch of static files, and source code is like in every single app you wrote before, like in MVC. It's nothing different, and a bunch of third-party packages. So apart from this, nothing to worry about. In production, things are a little bit differently. You don't need SDK anymore. You just need .NET Core. So that's what you install, and then you just publish the app, and whatever you publish is ready to run. You don't need to worry about it. What else you have to install? It's just there. So there are 3 steps, how you deploy your app. It's almost, too simple to be true. You restore your packages, you publish your application, you take your tool, whatever tool you like, and you deploy. Too simple. But devil's in details. So let me get you through, how you publish the app. So you run .NET restore. In ASP.NET 5, it was DNU. You don't have that anymore. You call .NET. The command is the same, but the tool is different. .NET publish is the command that takes care of packaging. Whatever files have to go out that are ready for deployment. And once it comes time to run that, all you have to do, you have to say, okay, .NET, I want to run this assembly, and that's it. Oh, we're tweeting already. That's good. So first thing about how we're going to deploy that to IIS. Obviously, that's the easiest thing, right? You have to pre-set up, pre-configure your server. So if you're doing that on Windows Server, you have to click on the web server here when it comes to server roles. You leave the default configuration because there's nothing else you need than that. And if you're running that on Windows 10 or any Windows 8 or 7, whatever, you just choose the default things. So pretty much the management console and the World Wide Web services, but you leave the defaults. Then you go to your command line. You run .NET restore. That's gonna take care of the packages, all the dependencies that you have in your solution. It's gonna pull down the NuGet packages, and then you run .NET publish. And then you specify where exactly you want to publish. If you don't specify that, it's gonna publish in the default directory. Nothing dramatic here. So good so far? Okay, then you go to IIS. You create a new website. For those of you who actually said that they're building the ASP.NET 5 apps, so only a few of them. So what are you going to do? You're going to point it to www.root, right? Yeah, no. This is a breaking change now. So Microsoft has changed that, and you don't point your app anymore to www.root. You always point it to the parent folder. Now, for those of you who haven't done that before, you don't care about it, but those who did, bear in mind that this is a breaking change, and if you don't do that, it's not going to work. Okay, another thing that's very important, if you're running your application inside IIS, you don't specify what CLR version you're using on the app pool. You always have to use no managed code. Okay? Good. And then you get this. Yay! What a lovely app. Okay, so what went wrong? What do you think? Come on, this is a classic 519 app, screen. You should know about it. David, can you get the mic?
Is it the mapping?
No.
It cannot access web config file.
Okay, can you say that again?
It cannot access web config file.
No, there is no web config files anymore. You have project.json and app settings. Who else? TJ.
Does it know that there is no web config files anymore, and it's looking for one and cannot
knows
find
that.
it?
Okay, I'm not gonna push you too hard because obviously that's a very.
Because it is looking for a config file.
Yes, it says that. It just doesn't understand what exactly it's supposed to do. So yeah, you're obviously gonna be like that, What happened, when you go to docs.asp.net, there is a section about publishing applications to IIS. And after you go through all the steps, you think, yeah, it's gonna work. There's another section down there which talks about installing the .NET Core Windows Server hosting bundle. And what this does, now we come in, when I mentioned that, we have in IIS, things are running differently than on ASP.NET Core. We have Castrol, a new web server. The two of them don't understand each other. And now we have to, install something that will bring them together. And this is that Windows Server hosting bundle. And once you download that from the Microsoft page, you click install, and voila, then it works. So what this module does, it kind of proxies the requests to the Castrol instead of trying to handle them by himself.
So it's like the CGI stuff for PHP.
Yeah, could say so. Yeah, so that's how you get an app running on IIS. Okay, what about Azure? You know, how many of you are using Azure so far? Okay, half the room. That's good. So in Azure, things are really, really simple. All you do, you right-click on your solution. Obviously, you do it on the folder, not on the class library, to be clear. You click Publish, then you're going to get this dialog, and you choose, you're going to publish that on Microsoft Azure App Service. You specify what exactly, you know, is the web app. If you have created that before, that's fine. You can reuse that one. If not, you can click on the new button, and it's going to create a new one. And then you're going to get this classic publish dialog. Click Publish, and you're good to go. So clear about Azure? Okay. Now, as we're talking about Azure, you know, microservices are very popular these days. And ASP.NET Core goes hand in hand with microservices, you know, because it's very lightweight and you can publish that. You can build those things on top of Azure Service Fabric, but you know, that's a topic for itself. I'm just mentioning this, so if anyone is interested in this. The deployment lifecycle of Azure Service Fabric is completely different. You know, you have actors and services up there. They have their own life cycles, so that's another topic for another day. Okay, now we're going to go to automating tools, you know, that are taking care of the deployments. Who of you are using release management for TFS? Only one. Okay. Ah, two. There was one in the back. So what do? You know, if you're using release management for TFS, you're going to probably have it somewhere online in the VSTS account. You go there, you create a build definition, you run the build, and then you get that. Nice one, huh? Actually, that's not the case anymore. As of last week, they have deployed the new bits, which means that you have RC2 bits that need to be, you know, available to publish the application. They are available on the hosted servers. Otherwise, you can always create, you know, a build agent on your premises machine, and you can connect it to the cloud, and then you're going to push it down there. So from there on, it's pretty easy. So this is running on my local TFS, and it's the same thing if I have it in the cloud now, so it's not any different. What I would normally do, I would version my assemblies. Now bear in mind, there is no version now in the assembly info file. That's gone, right? So you have to change the version number in your project.json file, and this is what my PowerShell script does. It goes, it looks at a project.json file, it takes the build number from my TFS build, and it applies it to the file. So that's the step one that I do. Then we come to the Dotnet Publishing. First thing, as I mentioned before, you run .NET restore, okay? Then you publish the app into a folder where you think, you know, you're going to use it from. And what I do from here, because this is RM, I'm copying those bits back to a folder from where I can publish them to TFS. So in TFS you have drop folders. Some people are using it on network share. Some people are publishing those bits back to the server. That's what I'm doing here. I'm publishing them back to the server because I'm going to reuse them later on in my release definition. So, you know, for those of you who don't know how release management works, it's tightly linked back to a build definition. It's called build artifact. And build artifact kind of contains whatever you need to deploy. It's really up to you how you're going to use it, but that's it. Now we switch to the release part. So you see here on the previous screen, I have build, and here I have release. So we're going to go there now. In the release, all I have to do, I have to say, okay, I'm going to copy those files. So this release is linked back to my build definition. So whatever I published before to my drop folder is going to be available now for release management to deploy that. And all I do, I say, okay, whatever contents I have there, I'm going to publish those things into my CINetpub www.root_rm. And after that, I want to create a website or update it, you know, including the IIS app pool and, you know, whatever I want to have there. And once I'm done with that, I can see a release, you know, that succeeded. In this case, I have only dev environment, but you can imagine how things will work if you have more of them. And after that, I'm going to get a website. You like it? You want to see a demo? I know you don't believe me, but let me show you how this works. So here I don't have anything. It's just my TFS server on this box. So what I have here is just this TFS website. That's because I have TFS installed on this box. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my browser. I'm going to click on build. By the way, if you have questions, you can always ask, you know. I'm not biting, well, occasionally, but alrighty, so what I have here, there are 3 build definitions. I'm going to show you the first one, which is RM. I'm going to click on edit, you know, so that you see how this actually works. So this is the PowerShell that takes care of the versioning. Then I run .NET Restore, .NET Publish, like I showed you before. I'm going to push this to my artifacts directory and all the way back to TFS. So once I click, you know, Q build and OK, watch what happens. See, something's happening now. It started a build. It pulled on the resources. Now it's versioning my files. So it's applying the version that comes from the build that I have up here. Now it's running a .NET Restore. You can see it's looking for the packages that are missing there. It's going to take a bit. If you get off Wi-Fi, it might be faster. Okay, now we're going to the publish stage. And what it's doing, it automatically recognizes that I haven't built the app before. So when I run publish, it's going to build it for me as well. So now this is done. Come on. Now it's copying the files to the artifacts folder. I'm going to open that one in the background just in case. There we go. So what's going to happen here, I had to switch quickly because what I'm expecting, come on. There we go. It automatically kicked off a release because I linked it that way. So the way I configure TFS is that every time I kick off a build, I have a CI there, and after the build completes, it kicks off a release. That's the automatic stage, and that release is now deploying the bits back to my machine. You could, you know, deploy it to any machine, but for the demo purposes, this is the easiest way to set it up. And I can actually show you what is happening there, unless I was too late. Not this one. So this is still executing. We're going to go to logs. And I can look at the, you know, the execution flow and see how release management is deploying my bits and what exactly is happening. Maybe I should scroll this here. So this is just initializing, you know, the work directories, then it pulls down the files it needs to deploy. Then it copies the files from the artifact folder. So whatever I had in TFS, it's not on my machine anymore. It's somewhere in the TFS database. And then it sets up the web page. And let me have a look here. If we go and if we do F5, I have a new website. It's called demo_rm. And this site is running on port 11,000. So this is 11,000. If I refresh this now, one, two, three. I said it's fast. Voila. So this is deployment of ASP.NET Core to IIS using release management. There you go. Okay. Now what about Octopus Deploy? How many of you are using Octopus? Okay, half the room again. The other half, what are you doing?
Release me.
There was a third. No, actually, only 2 people used release management. Oops, sorry. Okay, so in Octopus, things are a little bit different, you know. You're dealing with NuGet packages, and because you have to produce a NuGet package, Octopus understands zip files as well. You could, you know, create a zip, doesn't really matter. But the thing is that TFS won't clean those files for you. So I kind of went into memento phase. I'm gonna delete the package first if it's there, because I don't want to have it. You know, I want to push only one package out, and I don't want to bloat my build server, because every time I'm going to kick off a build, I'm going to create a new package, and you know, over time it'll grow. So I want to delete those packages first. After that, I'm going to version the files, so nothing different in this area. Same thing with .NET Restore, same thing with .NET Publish. Then we come to, you know, packaging the app. So these are the tasks that I get from Octopus Deploy. And to get these tasks, you have to install your custom extension on your TFS or on your VSTS account. That will give you those build tasks. From there on, it's pretty easy. All you have to do is specify what's the package ID, what type you're producing. This is the bit that I'm actually using from TFS. So I specify, okay, build number comes from TFS. I don't want to, you know, just repeat the number every single time. So this is how I specify this. And then I specify, okay, what exactly I'm, you know, packaging. And remember when I said in .NET Core, whatever you publish, when you type .NET Publish, it's everything there that I need. So whatever went to my app folder, that's what I'm going to use. And I'm going to put that in the NuGet package. And then I just specify where exactly do I want to push that package out. Nothing dramatic here. Then I push that package to Octopus Deploy. So that's a pre-requirement, right? And after that, I create a release. So there are a few things about Octopus Deploy. You can either specify every time a package comes in, I want to create a new release, and then I can trigger a deployment. That's fine. We don't like that, you know. The thing is, say that I produce a package throughout the build, but somewhere in the step 2 or 3, and I have 4 more steps to go, like, you know, run some unit tests, things like that. I don't want to have that package in there if the unit tests fail. So if I'm going to push that package in, so say instead of, you know, running a command line here, I don't run any unit tests, you know. The nature of our work is like, we're going to go to production, then it's going to fail, and after that we're going to write some tests. So that's why my session is first and Dave's session is second, because, you know, he's going to teach you how to do those things right. So yeah, imagine that those, you know, tests fail. I want to have a release that's working, and that's why I control these through my build pipeline only, you know, after everything passes. I'm going to create a release. And after I'm happy with that, I can trigger a deployment. So this bit is not necessarily, you know, that I do it through TFS. But the reason why I do it and not have, you know, automatic deployment done on their end is because I want to see if things really deployed correctly, you know. If I let this Octopus to handle, the build is fine, but I don't know what exactly happens from there on. And I want to see, you know, those at the first stage where it's development, or I should call it CI. At that stage, I want to know exactly what happened, you know, if the build went fine. Then you go to Octopus, and in Octopus, all you need is one step. And that's deploy a website, or you name it whatever you like. Then you specify the package you want. There is no web.config file anymore, so bear in mind it's, you know, app settings.json, and I'm going to show you later on how you actually control those settings. Then you specify what's the website name. Don't forget, no www root. You leave empty. And yeah, the rest is pretty much classic as before. You specify what's the app pool name. No managed code on this one, so if there is no app pool, it's going to create it and make sure that, you know, it sets the right values. And the last thing is the binding. So how many of you are familiar with this already? Yeah, most. Okay. After that, you have to go to variables. You know, when you're replacing connection strings, like in this case, you know, I have my default connection string. It's different. It's not web config anymore. You can't just say, okay, I want to go with my naming convention app dot blah 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 something if I name that variable in web config like that. It's a bit different. So see the syntax here? I have connection strings colon default connection string. Now how does that work? I have connection strings at my first layer, and then the next the first node, and then the next one is default connection. So I should have named that one correctly. I mistyped it. It should be default connection, so it's no string here. But you get the idea. If I wanted to change the value of my default logging, I would have to go login colon log level colon. Does that make sense? Okay. So this is the important thing you have to know about ASP.NET Core and Octopus. And then you're gonna get the website there. You're gonna, kick it off, and it's gonna come up. You want to see it? No? Ah. So here on the build, I've got Octopus. So let me just show you that I wasn't lying. It's the same build definition as you've seen it before. Same steps. So this is it. It's all there. I'm gonna queue a new build. I'm gonna click OK, and we're good to go. So we're gonna give it some time. It's gonna take about a minute, before those things go through. So while we have time, we can chat. So what do you think about ASP.NET Core right now? I know it's mind shifting completely, but how do you feel about it? Those of you who have tried it, can you share the experience with the group? It's obviously, yeah, go for it. DJ, you're responsible for the mic.
I give it a go like 4 months ago, and then when I tried, I had difficulty with the build system for JavaScript, CSS, and I don't remember the name of the build system, but you need to use some Node.js components. And then I ran into issues. I wasn't able to fix them. And then because I didn't know about Node.js, I forgot about it. So it's kind of like, because it's a very, very different field for me. It's really kind of a struggle to jump into it.
Right. There's one thing about ASP.NET Core that you have to understand. First one is that whatever Microsoft releases, the first version is never good. It's always second one. That's one thing, and that's just a joke. But anyway, they're doing an incredible job with that.
Yes, I'm going to give it another go.
But the thing is, that they have changed the F5 experience into something that we're not used to, and the tooling, is not there. So before the tooling comes up, a lot of developers will probably break their legs. But I honestly think that's really the way to go, where things are going to go ahead. People are going to come up later. The thing, with Node.js and other, components from the open source world, I wouldn't really say they're an obstacle to ASP.NET Core. It's just an addition, and it's the way how you're going to use them. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about what they're coming up with. It's really fast. I really like the idea that I can build it on for different platforms. There's only one problem with that. I have to understand what platform I'm building for. So I can already imagine people coming up and say, oh, so this runs on Linux now. Yeah, Linux is cheaper. I want to have it there, of course. And then you go, yeah, not really like that. There are differences. There are simple things like, say for example, you're saving files. You know exactly how Windows works. In Linux, it's different. You just can't say, okay, I'm going to say, I'm going to use slash, because in Linux it's backslash, and you have to be careful with those things. So yeah, that's one thing about ASP.NET Core that you have to be careful about. But the rest of it, at the beginning I had a slide how you can actually deploy, how actually ASP.NET Core is composed. and you can still target the full framework if you like. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to go on the .NET Core. So there are two things, .NET Core and ASP.NET Core. ASP.NET Core is built on top of .NET Core, but it works on the .NET framework as well. So you can still target the full framework if you like. Okay, so then in the meantime, you see I have all green ticks. That's really good. So let me just show you what happened. So I pulled down the sources. I deleted my old NuGet packages. There was a PowerShell that applied the version. Then we made a package. We pushed the package, created a release, and deployed that to Octopus. So if I switch here now to Octopus, so this is version 13 that is cached there, I believe. Oh no, it refreshed. So this was pushed out through my CI. We can check the log. So this is what happened. Nothing dramatic. All I did pretty much is I deployed that package. I pointed my website to that one. And if I go here and click refresh, I get Octopus demo. So if we're going to go browse, come on. Yeah, it takes a while before it comes up for the first time, but that's it. That's Octopus Deploy and .NET Core. Easy. Now the interesting part is, when you're starting playing with Linux, and that's what we're gonna touch in the next few minutes. And that's deploying to Docker. So how many of you know Docker? Ooh, almost everyone. So the reason why Docker is so nice is because it comes with that term, it works on my machine. And how does that work is like, if I deployed my app on this laptop and Adam said, yeah, I want to have this app working, and I would say, I'm deploying it here and I'm taking it to Adam, there you go. It works. So the next time Adam wanted a change and he would say, I want to have that thing done. And I would say, okay, I would compile it here, I'd be really happy. Actually, it wouldn't be this laptop. I would take a new laptop. Brand new laptop, I would try it there. If I was happy that it works, I would take him a laptop and I would take the old one back. That's how Docker works, in theory. It's the easiest explanation how that thing works. So what do you need, to start working with Docker containers and ASP.NET Core apps? So some prerequisites: you have to have Docker Toolbox that runs on VirtualBox. If you don't like VirtualBox, because it comes with Java or whatever it comes with, you can do that. You can run that on Hyper-V, but you have to sign up for beta. And if you get lucky enough, they're gonna let you in. It takes some time before they process your request and things like that. And then you install the tools. And the experience is the same as with Docker Toolbox, but the only difference is it doesn't run on VirtualBox, it runs on Hyper-V. One really cool thing, if you're new to Docker and Docker deployment, you can use Visual Studio tools for Docker. It's in preview, of course, but you can get it from Visual Studio Gallery. And after you install the tools, what you get is Docker support. So if you right-click on your web application, you go Add, and you add Docker support. It's really handy. Instead of working out how to push something to an image and how to deploy that image to Docker, you can do that through a right-click, go Add Docker support, and then you get this. It's an F5 experience that we're all loving. And that F5 experience does exactly what you would expect from it. If you're familiar with Docker, Docker comes with a kind of compose file where you specify what exactly you want to happen before you deploy that container. And this is how the container is built. So this is my debug container because it has some extra steps that I want to explain. So what happens in first place is I want to specify what image am I using. If you're familiar with Hyper-V snapshots or something like that, you can create an image and build from that image later on. And do whatever you like. It's the same thing here with Docker. You specify, I want to build my image from an existing image. And in this case, what I'm doing, I'm taking a Microsoft.NET RC2 core image from the Docker Hub. And I pull down that image. Of course, once it's on your machine, it's cached, so you don't have to pull it down every single time. And that's the bit that it's really nice. You know, if you want to run your application on Docker, that's fine. But what if you want to debug it? You know, how are you going to do that? You know, obviously that's not that easy. Well, with those tools, they install whatever you need to run an application on Docker, have an F5 experience there, and have a debugger. You step through the code in your browser, on your machine. It doesn't have to be on the Linux host. Whenever you hit the breakpoint, it's going to happen in your Visual Studio. So those are the bits that are taking care of this. Now, how cool is that? Debugging on Linux. Okay, so for production, you won't have that, but the rest of it you will. And what I do here, I copy my files. So remember, I published my files to app folder, and I want them to be in app folder on my Docker container. And then I specify, okay, my work there on the container is the app folder. And the reason why I need that is because somewhere down here, I say, okay, I want to run .NET with my web app. And because it's that working directory, it's going to know what exactly I'm looking for. Now, one important bit before I get there is I need to, in ASP.NET Core, you have to specify on which port your app is running. And in the past, you had to do that through the project.json file, where you had like a web command, and you specified, okay, Kestrel runs on this port, and blah, blah, blah. Now you can do that through environment variables. And that's really handy because, on ASP.NET Core on Linux, you couldn't really, well, you could change the variables, but that doesn't really, help. I want to control that, how the container is built, because I want to change that later on when I push my container to different stages. So what I do here, I specify, okay, ASP.NET Core _ server URLs, I want you to run on port 80 on HTTP. And then I expose port 80 on my container. So one thing is where the app will run, and one is what I'll have open to the outer world. And then the final bit is how I'm going to run that. So what's the entry point when I'm going to say Docker run my container? And in this case, it's a bit more complicated, because if it's in debugging, it says, okay, I want to run the remote debugger and then my app. Otherwise, it's just .NET web app. That's very simple. Science fiction? Probably. Okay. Now let me show you how I do that on DFS. So what I use is the same procedure as you have seen it 2 times before. So we're going to go through it very quickly, but there are some important bits. So up to here, nothing changes. Even here, nothing changes. This step is very important. What I do here, I'm going to take a step back. I specify, so that's one bit that is important. When I mentioned Dockerfile, in the previous slide, what we had there was Dockerfile.debug. So that Docker file, I have a template. I'm copying it over to a folder where I'm going to build a Docker image. And here what I do, I run my Docker build command. Now what this is going to do, it's going to look at the Docker file, check what has to happen, execute those steps one by one, and then it's going to create an image. And that image is ready for deployment. I can push it wherever I want. So the next step isn't that important. Oh, there is a question from the live stream. Is .NET Core production ready? I don't know, to be honest, because they're changing things every 14 days. I don't think it is. It's going to be RTM by the end of this month. But usually they have go live license, and I'm not sure about this one. But yeah, it's for the brave ones. That's my answer. Okay, so you can run, so what I have here is a PowerShell script, and I'm going to show you that PowerShell script later on, because what I do, I run some PowerShell that runs the Docker container on my VM, and kills the previous containers and things like that. So what I'm actually doing here, I'm looking forward to the next phase the release phase, because right now I have an image. I don't have a package. It's an image, and that image is 600 megs. I'm not going to copy that over wherever I want. I just want to, run it on a container. If I was to publish, I didn't know, whether I could have enough time to push this one here, because what I could do as part of my build, this is sitting on my machine, but ideally you want to have a pipeline where you push an image back to your Docker registry, So it's not available on your machine, it's available there wherever you want it, and you can, distribute it to hundreds of machines. There was a question? No? Okay, let's move on then. So what I'm doing here, I'm just pushing that PowerShell script in my release pipeline. That's all I care about, The first demo I did in release management, I cared about all my files from Dotnet Publish. Now I care only about one PowerShell script that I'll use. And that PowerShell script will deploy my Docker container. So what I do here, I create a release definition. I specify in that release definition what image I want to run. And this is what the PowerShell looks like. So what I do here, the first thing is, when I have a container there already running on port 8080, if I run another one, it's going to say, you can't do that, the port is already taken, So I have to stop the container first. And what I do, I check for all containers that already, have port 80 exposed. So I shut down those containers first. Once I do that, I can say, okay, now Docker run my new image, take the latest image that I produced, expose it on port 8080, and that's how it works. So let me show you this live. Okay. So here's my Docker. As you can see, there's nothing running on it. So it's going to come back with the same page. I'm going to leave it there for a while. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a change here. That's one of the nicest features, in DFS. You don't have to go to Visual Studio. You can code from the browser. So this is my Docker, and let me go to Demo App, Views, probably shared. Where's that layout? There we go. Now let's find the navigation tab. So if I'm correct, I'm going to change this here from Demo App to something really cool. So let's say watch this. I'm running on Linux inside Docker container. As soon as I hit commit, I think I have CI in place. It's going to go create a build, run through the steps, and I want you to watch closely because you're going to see some extra things that, they're not in the build definition, they're in the Docker file. There we go. This is my build definition. No. So what's happening here? It's running .NET Publish. Oops. Nothing dramatic so far. Then it's going to copy over the files. And now watch what's going to happen now. It's running Docker build. You see what happened here? I'll have to wait a bit. There we go. So what happened here, it started creating an image for Docker, and it pushed all my files that I produced from .NET Publish. It pushed those files on the image, so it copied them in here, and then it went through all those steps that I had in my Docker file. It specified the point, and then it created a release. And if I switch now to release, I already have a release. It was executed incredibly fast. Let me show you the log. That's all I have to show. It did the same steps. It pulled down that PowerShell script. It executed the PowerShell script. You see here, it stopped the conflicting containers. So those that were running on port 80. It ran the demo app. That was my image. And if I go here and refresh this guy, come on. Well, Linux might be cheaper, but it's also slower. At the end of the day, you pay the same price. There we go, folks. This is ASP.NET Core running on Linux. There you go. And that's pretty much it. So let me just, summarize what you have learned today. ASP.NET Core can run anywhere you want, and it's pretty simple to deploy it once you know how. There are 3 steps. You restore the package, you publish it, and then you run whatever tool you like to deploy it. And that's it. Thank you very much.